Chapter 9, Leap of Faith, Unknown. Thomas could not decide if the corridor in front of him was man-made or natural. On one hand, its dimensions were perfectly uniform and unchanging. Its deliberate consistency seemed to obviously indicate it could not be natural. On the other hand, the composition of the walls and floor were of a texture Thomas had never encountered. It appeared as if it should feel rough to the touch, but when he ran his hand across it, it felt artificially smooth, almost glass-like. None of it made sense. Thomas was no geologist, but he knew enough to know that formations like this did not exist in southeastern Michigan. Every spring since he was a child, Thomas had heard about the issues the high water table caused for the shallow basements in the area. Sump pumps ran non-stop after only a few days of rain, and standing water seeping in from below was a problem as old as homeownership in the area. Yet here he was, an underground cavern that reminded him of a West Virginia coal mine sprawled in front of him. If he allowed his imagination to run unchecked, the cave could be a lot of things he supposed, but Petersburg, Michigan it was not. Almost at a shuffle, he started moving forward. He walked for around 3 minutes without noticing a single change in the tunnel. Even behind him, the altar-like structure he'd connected his device to had long been lost to the darkness. He was beginning to wonder just how long he would be willing to walk this never-changing path when he finally noticed something in the distance. 50 yards ahead of him, seemingly floating in the dust particles of his flashlight's beam, he saw a staircase leading upward. From his vantage point, it appeared identical to the staircase he had walked down, so much so that for a moment he'd wondered if he had somehow gotten turned around and was back where he'd started. He then realized there was no altar here, so it couldn't be the same place. As he approached, nothing in the tunnel changed. It was maddeningly consistent. When he reached the base of the stairs, he shone the light upwards and saw exactly what he assumed he would see, another hatch door identical to the one he'd entered from his backyard. Then he realized it was not exactly what he should have expected to see. There were far fewer stairs leading to this door compared to the 52 he ascended on the other side. He counted quickly. There were only 10 stairs. Why would that be? He hadn't felt any incline in the floor during his walk. Even if there had been one, it was so gradual and the trip so short that it wouldn't possibly make up the difference in the number of stairs between the two sides. While considering this, he slowly hovered the beam of light to the right side of the staircase and saw something far more concerning, which made him instantly forget all his stair-related questions. A full skeleton, human as far as he could tell, bones and skull scattered randomly across 3 of the middle stairs. Thomas gasped and immediately withdrew the beam from the skull. Shaking, he turned away from the stairs. He certainly didn't want to look at the skeleton, but he also didn't want it to be behind him, out of his sight, looming in the darkness. He was unsure of what to do. He placed his bags on the ground and sat for a moment on the bottom stair. His doubts and fears ran wild. How old was the skeleton? It seemed very old. Who was it? Why was it there? Had the unfortunate soul died on the stairs upon opening the hatch? Was Thomas about to die? Just how unprepared was he for whatever lay behind the door above? A backpack and a duffel bag. That is all he had brought for his great adventure. He felt like such a fool. He had no idea what was on the other side of the door, but he was confident that if it was what Bert said it was, he would have no allies there, no means of transportation, no shelter. His plan had been to simply roam around with 2 bags wherever he ended up. And now, for the first time, he knew there was a real potential danger. Someone had died here, maybe someone like him, and he'd brought 2 bags. He might as well have been an 8-year-old planning to run away from home. He wanted to turn around. He could live without knowing what was on the other side of that door, especially if it meant he wouldn't have to walk by the skeleton he'd just seen. There was nothing stopping him from going back. He could return the way he had come, grab his device on the way out, and forget about the whole thing. This device was about to change his life forever in ways most people only dreamed of. In that sense, he would be a fool not to go back. But sitting on that stair, he knew not all of that was true. He would never be able to forget about that door. Human curiosity is a force of immeasurable power. Even if it was the wrong choice, even if it was the dangerous choice, even if it would be his final choice. At this point, he simply had to know what was on the other side. Mankind has a knack for justifying unjustifiable decisions in pursuit of making the unknown known. Thomas was no different. There was, of course, still a chance that the tunnel was merely a tunnel. Thomas didn't believe that currently, but by far the most rational explanation for what was behind the door was the exact same world he had left. Maybe the door would just open to some other hatch, a half-mile from his childhood home, hidden harmlessly in some obscure backyard or woods that he simply had never known about or visited as a child. It was the most likely outcome from a skeptic's point of view, to be sure, but Thomas didn't feel like a skeptic anymore. He felt like a believer. Still shaking, he put his backpack on over both shoulders and then slung the duffel bag over just his right. He took one last look down the tunnel he had just traversed and then turned toward the stairs, consciously keeping the flashlight beam away from the unfortunate traveler whose final moments he was hoping he was not about to replicate. He moved quickly up the stairs, grabbed the handle, and for the first time considered that it might be locked from the outside. Putting the thought aside, he abruptly wrenched it to his left, the metal letting out a high-pitched screech as it turned with relative ease. He could always go back, he told himself before he began to push. If some hideous world lay on the other side, he could always go back. Deep down, he was pretty sure that wasn't true.